Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And before we get into it, can I just ask that you check you're still subscribed? They're doing it again. And I've had a bunch come off, and not against any video or anything. And it is just people being bounced out by YouTube. I've had messages in the comments about this today. So do please check you're still there. And if you've not yet subscribed, now is also an excellent time to do so. There's so much happening. Anyway, we've got a story here about Humza and his inability to remember what his policy is. He's changed his policy on what counts as a mandate for an indie ref. And he's changed it so many times that he's now forgotten what he's supposed to be saying. And now it's, he's opened his mouth and said one thing, and someone had to point out to him, no, that's not what the policy is, surely. You said it was this and not that. And he's realised that he's made a complete idiot of himself again, because he literally cannot remember what the policies are, because they're so complex and they change every 3 minutes that it's what particular policy are we following today? Who knows? Pick one at random. I suppose he works to the principle if he just says all of them and throws everything at a wall, something will stick. But it isn't going to, because none of them count. None of them are real. And it doesn't matter what he says. And of course, increasingly time is running out anyway, so who cares? But let's have a look to see why Humza is again wrong. Here goes. Man is truly an idiot, isn't he? He's a complete buffoon. He chops, he changes his mind so often that he forgets everything. And this week, of course, it's a different set of rules from what it was last week. And I'm sure next week it'll be something else, because he literally doesn't know what he's talking about. This is what happens when a very stupid man is elevated to great power. He makes a complete and utter tit of himself. Humza Youturn backtracks on Skexit comments after humiliating most seats blunder. Because that was originally the policy, then they changed it. And then they changed it again. And, he doesn't know what he's talking about. First Minister was forced to backtrack again on comments that he made about independence, as he got his own policy wrong and insisted that he was asked about winning the general election instead. Yeah, let's change the question. Let's pretend that wasn't the question. I'll try and cover up my obvious stupidity. You won't, because we all know you're stupid. Hapless Humza has already had to backtrack on comments he made just last night about independence, as questions were raised about whether he himself understood his own strategy. The First Minister was adamant on STV News that the SNP would seek a mandate for breaking up the UK if they won the most seats in Scotland at the next general election. But that isn't the policy, you idiot. Journalist John McKay questioned him about the official nationalist policy voted through at the last party conference, where he said if we win the general election, this would be used to push for Skexit. Now, of course, just as an aside there, he can't possibly win the general election. To win the general election, he needs something like 329 seats, and he's only fighting 59 of them. So, no, how can he possibly win the next general election? Man's an idiot. Anyway, he was asked if win meant a majority, to which he responded, win means most. And this is what the conference backed. But that is not what the conference backed, because, idiot in charge. This sparked confusion once again, as the SNP had actually voted that they needed to win the majority of constituencies if they wanted to gain independence. This was even backed by Mr. Yousaf during the debate, although only after he wanted it to be the most seats, which is an easier victory. The First Minister was quick to deny that he'd made a blunder when he asked about it by ITV Border on Wednesday, insisting that the question had actually been about what it takes to win an election. He was confronted about whether he was lowering the bar due to his previous comments. And the thing is, of course, it doesn't matter if he wins the most seats or, whatever he wins. That isn't a referendum. He won't get independence that way. The only way he does it is to get an actual, not pretendy referendum, but an actual referendum. And that's been told that won't happen. That last one in 2014 was the one in a generation. That was made quite clear. Why they can't accept it, nobody knows. Is it because they are naturally stupid? Presumably. You only have to look at your average nat. Anyway, he said, I was asked about winning a general election, which you can't win. Generally, it's accepted that if you win more seats, you win the general election. And in the conference motion, of course, it says if the SNP win a majority of seats, then we can negotiate a mandate for independence. Here's what will happen on that Friday morning. Oh, we've won lots of seats. Can we have a mandate for independence? And Westminster will go, no, and put the phone down, and that'll be an end to the matter. What's he going to do? Go on strike? Who would that inconvenience? He said, don't want to go away from anything I've said before, which is in order to secure independence, we can talk process, which is important, is vital. He said, but actually more important than that is building the popular support, which is drifting away. He went on to claim that there is a consistent majority support for independence, and in recent polls, but he said out of 7 surveys done this year, only 2 had the majority yes votes, and both of them by pro-SNP organisations. His answer did not clear things up, with the journalist forced to simplify and asked, is it most or majority for a mandate? Mr Youssef claimed the conference agreed the majority of seats will allow us to negotiate a mandate for independence. Winning the general election means winning the most seats. 2 different questions have been asked. I accept that winning the most seats does not mean you win the election, you know. You can be the government and not have the most seats. You can be a minority government. You can have not a majority of seats. You can have the most seats. Sorry, you can have the most seats and form a government, sure, but it doesn't give you the right to push because you've got opposition that is more powerful than you. And if he's saying that, if we get the most seats, then we've got a mandate to negotiate, what you've also then got to say is, actually, they got the most seats. The ones who aren't nationalist, the unionist parties combined got the most seats. Because unless you get a majority, you haven't got the mandate. Pamela Nash, Chief Executive of Scotland in Union, said nobody can keep track of the SNP's election strategy U-turns. And the party leader himself is so confused that he doesn't even understand what was passed at his own conference. The dizzying array of different positions would be funny if it wasn't so serious. No, it is. It's completely funny. It's not serious. The Nats are never going to get it. They're never going to get the majority. They're never going to get an independence referendum out of the results of a general election. That's for sure. And it's just an absolute joke that this man thinks that he's powerful enough to demand it. Westminster will just say, no. They probably won't even pick up the phone. They go, it's Humza. Oh, no, don't bother. He's not important enough. I've got some paint to watch drying or something. Anyway, she said, this is a reminder that Humza Yousaf is so completely out of touch with Scotland that he thinks the forthcoming election should be about dividing communities and rerunning a constitutional argument rather than tackling the cost of living crisis. Scotland deserves politicians who focus on people's priorities. It deserves politicians who aren't complete idiots and who actually know their own party's policies. That's a start. And you also need a government that isn't obsessed with a single issue and that can look at the problems Scotland's got and at least make some attempt at curing one of them. Take one and say, right, that's the one we're going to concentrate on and fix it. But with the SNP, that simply doesn't happen because everything's got to be seen through that lens of independence and therefore everything becomes a complete and utter failure because you're not concentrating on fixing what you've broken. Anyway, I shall round off there. I shall come up and we shall finish the video. He can't help it, of course. He is a bear of very little brains. He has not got the sense he was born with. And so when presented with difficult things, it's not surprising he gets it wrong. If you'd given him, a couple of choices, he might have remembered it's that one, not that one. But when you've got 3 or 4 choices, it becomes very difficult for a man of his limited intellectual capacity. And of course, everything around him is falling apart. I always said he's a man destined to fail in whatever he does. And he's proved me right. The trouble is he's taking everything else down with him. And that's the saddest of it all. But soon he'll be gone. The way it's polling now, the way things are happening. And he, whenever the general election comes, and I think it's probably October, but whenever it comes, and he is handed his arse in terms of losing over half the seats, he's saying he's staying on. I wouldn't bet on it. I think there'll be words. I think there'll be men in suits coming up behind him having a little whisper and say, it's time to go. And that's if he even lasts. There's no guarantee he'll even last till Easter. And we've only got just over a month till that. Simply because they may want to boot him out and give Kate Forbes a run at it. To try and salvage something. It's hard to tell. Anyway, so stop there. Thank you very much for watching. As I say, do please hit that subscribe button. Definitely press the like button. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.